Okay. I apologize, we didn't have a shiur last week. And so we're picking up now with a Parakuf base, getting, I don't want to say we're not at the end, but approaching, getting closer to the end. And just to remind us that this is a hierarchy in terms of midos and the acquisition and difficulty it takes to acquire these midos. So higher up on the rung, we just did Hasidus, which is a very difficult one. And so we're going pretty far in terms of things that are difficult but obviously the ideal, our goals is to try to attain these or learn what we can to glean what we can from these. So we're going to be learning about anava, about humility. And he says, he says, I spoke earlier, much earlier in the Sefer about how detrimental haughtiness is. And in general about the praise of humility. However, he says now, I want to focus on anivas, this bar hagaiva me'eleha, and so like we're gonna be able to automatically understand and have a clearer understanding of gaiva from learning about this. Hine klal hanava, that generally when it comes to nava, hiyos adam bilti machshav atmo mishum tam shiyah, that in general for anivos, a person shouldn't ascribe to him anything more than is due. This is the opposite of gaiva. Meaning, when it comes to haughtiness, a person says, "I'm the best." Are you really the best? Like typically, the people that say they're the best are not usually the best. And even if someone is the best, they're like, we'll see. We're going to learn more, but there's a lot of things that you're not great at. So we'll go further. The offshoots of anivos are the opposite of the offshoots of gaiva. It says, and when we examine these things, nimsa that when it comes to wanting to work on humility, so it's applicable both in the way a person thinks and in the way a person acts. A person should begin, ideally, by trying to think of yourself as a humble person. And afterwards, meaning start thinking, we say in Lechadodi, right? We say, Machshavat Chila. What's the Machshavat Chila? I'm trying to blame the words before. Basically, Hashem first thought to create the world, then create the world. So you have to think of yourself as wanting to be more humble, or wanting to not necessarily be more humble. Obviously, like to be humble is not thinking necessarily dafka about humility, but to realize, put yourself into perspective, to realize, I'm not the best, or what I have is from Hashem, or this is just my natural inclination, things like that. And then to act in that fashion. Because if you're not someone who's humble in your thoughts, but you act humble in your actions, right? So let's say a certain sense of like, it's not even false humility, it's kind of like a fraud, right? And this is like the worst. When someone acts a certain way, we see this a lot of times. I'll just use like there's an extreme example, but like Bill Cosby, for example, had a very, very like nice, charismatic, charming, like kid-friendly personality, and then it came out about him that he was doing terrible things, right? So when someone is like two-faced like that, here a person, in our case, someone who doesn't think that they're being arrogant, they know, right? They have an inflated sense of self, let's say, but they act humble to get praise, let's say. So he says, Lo ya'ela min ha'novim ha'medumim v'aram shezachar l'mala. He says that's like the wicked people, the Risham that we discussed earlier above in previous program when we spoke about this. that these are complete hypocrites, and there's like nothing worse than this. Now I want to explain the different components to anivas. The footnote here explains something very important. It says that it's important diuk. He's not, I'll say what he is saying. He's saying that this person is bad only when they never intend to change their mentality. So if a person knows or feels that they're amazing, they have so much gaiva, and they feel I'm the best, and they act humble, and they never want to work on their thought behind it, then that's terrible. That's what he's referring to. But he says, and we'll see later, much not today, but we'll see later on that the Ramchal is going to say that actually one of the ways to work on becoming more humble is to actually do acts of humility. So even if you're not at that stage, you could actually do actions, kind of like what he's describing here. But the difference is that you want to become more humble. And the way to attain humility is to do that. We have that with midot in general. If you want to work on your anger, just try to stop being angry. Even if you will naturally get angry, don't act, right? If the actions lead to one's thoughts and one's emotions. It says hanava b'machshava. So now remember, so there's two components to anivas, machshava and ma'isa. So when it comes to machshava, a person contemplates and recognizes asher ein hatchila v'akavarim lo. Hatihila v'akavarim lo. You recognize, this praise, I'm not worthy of this praise. This is not right. Sometimes when you see people that are truly humble, it's an amazing thing. Plenty of times, to give you some examples. Like sometimes you'll see a Rav, let's say at a wedding where they're going to be called up, and like I know people like the Rav will sometimes have to like stand in the front, like walk up quickly, so that it's not like a whole long walk when everyone is like, wow, standing up and giving this person so much kavod. Or factually, right? There are Rabbeim who don't like the introductions that people give them when they're asked to speak. I've heard Rabbi Aryeh would say that he and Rav Shai Shechter have an agreement that when one invites the other to speak, that they don't give an introduction, or they give like a very brief one, like no like praises. Like they don't want that. They feel like it could, and because I believe that both of them are actually very humble, it gives them more praise. But they don't want to hear like, oh, look what he started, look how amazing he is, how much Torah he knows, what a tzaddik, what a tamach chacham, and all those are true, but they don't want to hear it because even for them, they don't necessarily feel that they might be living up to those words. I'm not sure why. I mean, some of it is that it's uncomfortable. They don't need the attention, whatever it may be. But that's a nifas. And so the first thing when it comes to mashava is to recognize and to believe that I don't deserve this honor. He says, Kol shekain his nase al shar b'nei mino. And certainly, I'm not better than anyone else. I don't deserve more praise than you. What I do? I'll give you a random example, not tied to Nivas, but I worked for many years in Camp Mosheva, and one of my random jobs I was in charge of specialty staff, but a lot of random things fell up in there on my plate, which is fine. So one of the random things was I was in charge of keeping track of people who want to come for Shabbos. Always there are many, say, camp alumni, staff alumni who want to come for Shabbos. They call the camp, say, can I come? And on if it was Wednesday or Thursday, I give the list to the head of the camp, and they say we go through who come, and there's a lot of cheshbonos that are made to who can come and who can't come. Sometimes based on, of course, how many beds there are going to be that Shabbos. Like if there are people who are in camp who are leaving, like staff bunks who are going to be open. Sometimes it's like the importance of the person, how long the person's been there, his position, whatever it may be, different reasons. So either way, I'm the person in charge, and I have to call up everyone and say you're able to come, or unfortunately I have to say sorry, you can't come for Shabbos. And so when I call people, they tell them they can't come. I don't say often, but it's happened many times where they get really upset, like, oh, but I went to that camp for 10 years as a counselor. They just get upset. And I have to take it. And even though it's not my call at all, I'm mamish just the messenger. I go to her, here's the list. Who should come, who should not come. So I have to take it. So then I've had times where I'm calling people and telling them you could come to camp. And what happens? They say, oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited. So I say to them, I say, please don't thank me. Just like the person who's mad that I tell them they can't come, it has nothing to do with me. This also has absolutely nothing to do with me. I'm happy you're coming, excited. We're all excited, but it has nothing to do with me. So, over here, just this idea of like a person who's humble. I said that had nothing to do with humility, but it's sprung from this thought that a person shouldn't feel I'm better than someone else. So like here, like don't thank me more than that person should be upset at me. Just it is what it is. So he says, and it says another important reason why a person should be humble is because you're inevitably lacking in an area. You're not perfect, right? It's just impossible. There are imperfections that you have, and that's just the way life is. So of course it might be where, let's say, basketball. It could be that people are going to be praising the players tonight. I know the names, but I don't know for how many people who are listening know the names. But like, could be Milton, Greek Freak, okay, Booker, Chris Paul, who their cats loves. So it could be that people are going to praise them, and you know what? They might be good at basketball, but they might be terrible at other things. So he's saying that even when someone's praising you in an area, or someone's praising you, like realize that, yeah, you're just focusing on this one small component of my life. It doesn't apply to really who I am or everything. It says probably going to stop here. I apologize. No, it was short. I'm going to put a note in my book of where we are. But just as I said, like I have to go to Mari, start a little late. But as Hashem, next week we'll be able to start probably more like regular time, whether that time is like 9 or 9:15. But at least Baruch Hashem, we got to learn a little bit together. Okay.